Hello, today we're going to review the fundamental rules for transporting hazardous materials on Illinois highways. This is one of the most regulated and safety-critical areas of commercial driving, so let's get prepared for you to pass that exam on the first try. Here are the key questions for the Illinois HazMat CDL endorsement exam. What federal regulation governs the transportation of hazardous materials by road in Illinois? 49 CFR Parts 100 to 185. The Hazardous Materials Regulations administered by PHMSA, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. Federal law sets the foundation. Illinois builds on top of it with additional state-level enforcement. Let's continue. What Illinois state agency enforces HazMat transportation regulations on state highways? The Illinois State Police, in coordination with federal PHMSA and FCA. You may encounter ISB inspections at any point on the road. Always have your paperwork in perfect order. Next question. What is the HazMat endorsement on a CDL and what does it allow? An endorsement that permits CDL holder to transport hazardous materials as defined in 49 CFR, requiring a TSA background check and a written knowledge test. The endorsement is not automatic. You must earn it separately through testing and federal screening. Let's move on. What background check is required to obtain the HazMat endorsement in Illinois? A TSA security threat assessment, including fingerprinting and a criminal history review. This process protects the public. There are no shortcuts when national security is involved. Continue. How often must an Illinois CDL HazMat endorsement holder renew the TSA security threat assessment? Every 5 years, concurrent with CDL renewal. Mark your renewal date in advance. Letting it lapse means losing your endorsement immediately. Next point. Who is disqualified from obtaining a HazMat endorsement in Illinois? Any person who is not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, or who has certain disqualifying convictions within the past 7 years, including felonies involving explosives or terrorism. The TSA screening is thorough and non-negotiable. Complete honesty on your application is essential. Let's keep going. What are the 9 hazard classes used in Illinois, consistent with federal HazMat regulations? Class 1 explosives, Class 2 gases, Class 3 flammable liquids, Class 4 flammable solids, Class 5 oxidizers, Class 6 toxic and infectious, Class 7 radioactive, Class 8 corrosive, Class 9 miscellaneous. Memorize all 9 classes cold. They will appear on your exam in multiple forms. Next question. What is the HazMat table in 49 CFR and how is it used? A table listing hazardous materials by proper shipping name with corresponding UN numbers, hazard classes, packing groups, labels required, and special provisions. The HazMat table is your primary reference document. If a material isn't in the table the right way, the shipment isn't legal. Let's continue. What is the proper shipping name, PSN, and where must it appear? The official name for a hazardous material listed in the HazMat table. It must appear on shipping papers, package markings, and placards. Using an unofficial or abbreviated name is a violation. Always use the exact name from the table, no exceptions. Next point. What information is required on a HazMat shipping paper in Illinois? Proper shipping name, UN or NA identification number, hazard class or division, packing group, total quantity, and a 24-hour emergency response telephone number. Every field on that shipping paper exists for a reason. Missing any one of them is a federal violation. Let's move on. Where must shipping papers be located when the HazMat driver is in the cab, within immediate reach of the driver, in the seat pouch or door pocket? In an emergency, first responders need those papers instantly. Accessibility is the law, not a suggestion. Continuing. Where must shipping papers be placed when the driver exits the vehicle? In clear view on the driver's seat or in the door pouch visible from outside. Even when you step away, emergency personnel must be able to find those papers without entering the cab. Next question. What is a 24-hour emergency contact number on a shipping paper and what is required? A phone number that must be monitored at all times by someone with knowledge of the HazMat being transported and the ability to provide emergency response information. That number must be answered by a real, knowledgeable person, anytime, day or night. Let's keep going. What is CHEMTREC and what is its phone number? A 24-hour chemical emergency response center operated by the American Chemistry Council, reachable at 1-800-424-9300, that provides technical HazMat emergency guidance. Save that number before your first HazMat load. In an emergency, every second counts. Next point. What is the National Response Center, NRC, and when must it be notified in Illinois? The federal agency at 1-800-424-8802 that must be notified immediately when a reportable quantity of a HazMat is released during transportation. 2 numbers to know by heart, CHEMTREC and the NRC. Both are required in a serious incident. Let's continue. What is a reportable quantity, RQ, in HazMat transportation? A specific amount designated by the EPA that, if released during transport, triggers mandatory immediate notification to NRC relevant authorities. Know every material you carry. A release above that threshold starts the clock on your reporting obligation. Next question. What does the abbreviation RQ appearing before a material name on a shipping paper indicate? The shipment contains a hazardous substance equal to or exceeding the EPA reportable quantity, requiring notification if accidentally released. When you see RQ on the paper, treat that shipment with extra caution. A release triggers immediate federal reporting. Let's move on. What are placards and what size must they be on a CMV in Illinois? Diamond-shaped signs at least 10.8 inches on each side, placed on all 4 sides of a vehicle to identify the HazMat class being transported. Size and placement both matter. An undersized or missing placard is a violation that puts first responders at risk. Continuing. On how many sides of a vehicle must placards be displayed? All 4 sides, front, rear, and both lateral sides. Every side of the vehicle must be identifiable from a distance. All 4 sides, no exceptions. Next point. What is the difference between a placard and a label in HazMat transportation? Placards are large 10.8-inch diamonds on the vehicle exterior. Labels are small 4-inch diamonds on individual packages. Same shape, very different purposes and sizes. Know which goes on the truck and which goes on the box. Let's keep going. When is a Table 1 HazMat material required to be placarded regardless of quantity? Any amount of a Table 1 material, such as explosives, poison inhalation hazards, and certain radioactive materials, requires placarding. With Table 1, there is no minimum threshold. 1 package means full placarding. Period. Next question. When is a Table 2 HazMat material required to be placarded in Illinois? When 1,001 pounds or more of Table 2 materials are present in the vehicle. Know the 1,001 lb threshold cold. It's one of the most tested numbers on the HazMat exam. Let's continue. When is the dangerous placard used instead of individual class placards? When 2 or more Table 2 HazMat categories total 1,001 pounds or more and no individual category requires its own placard. Danger placard is a convenience option, but it comes with strict eligibility conditions. Next point. What is packing group PG and what does PGI indicate? Packing groups II and III classify the degree of hazard. PGI indicates the greatest danger and requires the most stringent packaging. The lower the packing group number, the greater the danger. Never downgrade packaging requirements for convenience. Let's move on. What is a poison inhalation hazard, PIH material, and what additional placard is required? A gas or liquid that is toxic when inhaled. It requires a poison inhalation hazard or toxic inhalation hazard placard in addition to any other required placard. PIH materials get extra placarding because the inhalation risk is immediate and potentially catastrophic. Continuing. What is the Emergency Response Guidebook, ERG, and where must it be in the vehicle? A DOT publication providing initial guidance for first responders at HazMat incidents. It must be in the cab, accessible to the driver at all times. The ERG is your first reference in an emergency. Know how to use it before you ever need it. Next question. What does the orange section of the ERG contain? A numerical list of hazardous materials by UN ID number, cross-reference to guide pages for emergency response. When you have a UN number and need answers fast, the orange section is where you start. Let's keep going. What does the green section of the ERG contain? Initial isolation distances and protective action distances for toxic inhalation, hazard materials, and dangerous water-reactive materials. Green means go directly to this section when dealing with a toxic inhalation or water-reactive hazard. Next point. What is the correct action if a HazMat driver discovers a leak or spill from the cargo during transport in Illinois? Stop the vehicle safely away from people and ignition sources, keep bystanders away, contact emergency services, and follow ERG guidance without attempting to repair the leak. Do not try to fix the leak yourself. Isolate, notify, and let trained responders handle it. Let's continue. What Illinois-specific reporting is required after a HazMat transportation incident? Immediately notify the National Response Center at 1-800-424-8802 and the Illinois State Police if a reportable quantity is released, and file a written report. Immediate calls and a within 30 days. All three are required, not optional. Next question. Where is parking a HazMat vehicle prohibited in Illinois, consistent with federal rules? Near open flames, within 300 feet of a tunnel, bridge, or building in a populated area without attendants, and near crowds unless an emergency requires it. When in doubt, keep moving until you find a safe, compliant location. Never park near risk factors. Let's move on. What are the attendance requirements for a vehicle carrying Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives in Illinois? The vehicle must be attended at all times by the driver or a qualified representative who is aware of the hazard and capable of moving the vehicle if necessary. With the most dangerous explosives, there is no such thing as briefly unattended. Not even for a moment. Continuing. What is the minimum distance a HazMat driver must maintain from a vehicle carrying Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives when in a convoy? At least 300 feet between vehicles. 300 feet of separation is not a suggestion. In a catastrophic detonation scenario, that distance matters enormously. Next point. What routes must be used for HazMat vehicles in Illinois? Federally designated HazMat routes, local authority-approved routes, and Illinois-approved corridors. Certain materials may be banned from tunnels, bridges, or urban streets. Plan your route before you load. Discovering a restriction mid-trip creates dangerous and illegal situations. Let's keep going. What tunnel and bridge restrictions apply to HazMat vehicles in Illinois? Certain HazMat classes, including explosives, flammable gases, and poison inhalation hazards, may be restricted from specific tunnels and bridges in the Chicago area and other jurisdictions. Chicago's infrastructure has specific HazMat restrictions. Research every route before you enter the metro area. Next question. What is the Illinois requirement regarding HazMat routes through the Chicago metropolitan area? Carriers must use IDOT and locally designated HazMat corridors. Certain materials require advance notification to local emergency planning committees, LEPCs. Chicago is one of the most complex HazMat routing environments in the country. Know the corridors before you enter. Let's continue. What is a local emergency planning committee, LEPC, and what role does it play in Illinois HazMat transportation? A community organization mandated by EPCRA that coordinates local emergency response planning for HazMat incidents. Carriers may be required to notify the LEPC for certain shipments. LEPCs exist so communities can prepare for the materials moving through them. Notification is both a legal and civic responsibility. Next point. What is EPCRA and how does it relate to HazMat transportation in Illinois? The Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, which requires facilities and carriers to report HazMat releases and share information with local emergency planners and the public. EPCRA ensures transparency. Communities have the right to know what hazardous materials are traveling through their streets. Let's move on. What is a security plan and who must have one for HazMat transport in Illinois? A written plan required by 49 CFR for carriers transporting high-consequence dangerous goods, addressing personnel security, en route security, and shipment information security. Your security plan is a living document. Keep it current and make sure every relevant person knows it. Continuing. What are high-consequence dangerous goods, HCDG, in Illinois, consistent with federal rules? Materials that could cause mass casualties or catastrophic damage if weaponized, including certain explosives, toxic inhalation hazards, and radioactive materials. If your cargo could be turned into a weapon of mass destruction, a security plan is not optional, it is the law. Next question. What must a HazMat driver do if they suspect the shipment has been tampered with? Do not move the vehicle, notify law enforcement and the carrier immediately, and follow the security plan protocol. A tampered HazMat shipment is a potential terrorist threat. Treat it with exactly that level of seriousness. Let's keep going. What is the compatibility rule when loading different HazMat materials together in Illinois? Certain HazMat classes must be segregated because they can react dangerously. For example, explosives cannot be loaded with corrosives and oxidizers cannot be loaded with flammables. Incompatible materials in the same space can cause fires, explosions, or toxic releases. Segregation rules exist for a reason. Next point. What must a driver do if asked to load incompatible HazMat materials in the same vehicle? Refuse the load. Federal regulations prohibit transporting materials that could react dangerously in the same vehicle. You have both the right and the legal obligation to refuse an unsafe or non-compliant load. Know that and act on it. Let's continue. What fire extinguisher is required on a CDL HazMat vehicle in Illinois? At minimum, a 10 BC rated extinguisher or 2 5 BC extinguishers located in the cab and accessible to the driver. Check your extinguisher at every pre-trip inspection. An expired or undersized unit is both a violation and a liability. Next question. What is the Illinois penalty for transporting HazMat without a valid CDL HazMat endorsement? Federal and state fines, CDL disqualification, and potential criminal charges depending on the nature of the material and circumstances. Operating without the proper endorsement is not a technicality, it is a serious offense with career-ending consequences. Let's move on. What is the maximum federal civil penalty per violation per day for serious HazMat violations? Up to $84,107 per violation per day, and up to $196,192 if the violation results in death, serious injury, or major property damage. These are not small numbers. HazMat compliance is not just a safety issue, it's a very serious financial one too. Continuing. What does a white diamond with a black propeller symbol placard indicate? Class 7, radioactive material. That propeller symbol is internationally recognized. Give radioactive vehicles the wide berth they deserve. Next point. What does a black and white vertically striped placard with the number 9 indicate? Class 9, miscellaneous hazardous material. Don't underestimate a Class 9 load just because it's in the miscellaneous category. It's still regulated HazMat. Let's keep going. What does a red placard with a flame symbol indicate? Class 3, flammable liquid, or Class 2, Division 2.1, flammable gas, depending on the text on the placard. Red with a flame means fire risk. The text tells you exactly which class you're dealing with.